6 months after the galaxy learned the truth about humanity, everything had changed. The great powers that had once ruled the stars now sent careful messages to Earth, hoping for trade deals and protection agreements. Fear had replaced arrogance. In their communications, President Linda Carter sat in her expanded office on Nexus Prime, which was no longer the modest embassy it had once been. The human complex now rivaled the Council headquarters in size and importance. Outside her windows, she could see human ships patrolling the space around the station, making sure Earth's representatives were safe. "Madam President, the Zephyrian Ambassador is here for his appointment," her aide announced. Carter nodded and watched as Kethvar entered her office. The proud crystalline being who had once mocked humanity now moved carefully, his form dim with worry. He no longer stood tall and confident. Instead, he seemed to shrink in the presence of human authority. "Ambassador Kethvar," Carter said politely, "please have a seat." "Thank you, Madam President," Kethvar replied, his voice much quieter than it had been during that terrible council meeting months ago. "The Zephyrian Empire wishes to discuss a formal non-aggression pact with Earth." Carter studied the alien carefully. Then what would the Zephyrian Empire offer in return for such an agreement? "Full access to our crystal-growing technologies," Kethvar said quickly. "Our manufacturing processes, our energy storage methods, everything we have developed over the past 1,000 years. In exchange for what?" Kethvar's form flickered with embarrassment. "Basic defensive systems. Perhaps some of your older shield technologies. We understand that humanity has advanced far beyond our capabilities, but even your simplest defenses would improve our security greatly." Carter considered the offer while Admiral Clark and General Mitchell provided quiet advice from their seats. Nearby, the balance of power had not simply shifted. It had been completely overturned. "We appreciate the Zephyrian offer," Carter finally replied. "Earth is willing to consider mutual defense agreements with species that show genuine commitment to peaceful cooperation." Similar meetings were happening across the galaxy. Captain Nicole Davis commanded the USS Genesis as it visited former enemy worlds, now eager to make peace with humanity. The aliens who had once dismissed Earth as primitive now begged for scraps of human technology. "Captain, we are receiving another request from the Corvin homeworld," her communications officer reported. "They want to trade their entire database of scientific research for one of our basic medical scanners." Davis shook her head in amazement. The medical scanner they wanted was standard equipment on every human ship, nothing special by Earth's standards. But to the Corvins, it represented technology they could not understand or duplicate. Meanwhile, human exploration fleets commanded by officers like Captain Greg Stone and Commander Kelly Wright had begun establishing research stations in regions of space that had never been explored. Their missions went far beyond anything the old galactic powers had ever attempted. "Commander Wright, we are detecting energy signatures from the galactic core that do not match any known phenomena," reported Lieutenant Mark Johnson from his science station. Wright studied the readings with interest. "Prepare a probe for launch. If there are new forms of energy out there, humanity needs to understand them." This was the new reality. While alien civilizations struggled to comprehend technologies they had dismissed as impossible, humans were already pushing into frontiers that existed beyond alien imagination. Dr. Alan Cooper stood in his expanded research facility, watching. Reports come in from across the galaxy. The Aurora Project had grown from a secret program into the foundation of humanity's continued advancement. "The irony is perfect," he said to his research team. "They thought our weakness would keep us contained in a small corner of space. Instead, their mockery motivated us to become something the universe has never seen before." "Dr. Cooper," his assistant called from across the lab, "we are receiving requests from 17 different species asking for permission to study our quantum manipulation techniques. Cooper laughed. Tell them we appreciate their interest, but those technologies are still classified. Maybe in a few hundred years, when they have shown they can be trusted with such power. The true scope of humanity's transformation became clear as reports arrived from the furthest reaches of known space. Human vessels had been detected beyond the galactic rim, exploring regions that the old council had declared impossible to reach. Captain Paul Murphy stood on the bridge of the USS Infinity, humanity's most advanced exploration vessel. The ship existed partially outside normal spacetime, allowing it to travel to places that other species could not even detect. Captain, we are approaching the edge of the known universe, his navigator reported. Our sensors are detecting structures that do not appear on any galactic charts. Murphy looked out at space that shimmered with colors that had no names. Set course for the largest structure. If there are civilizations out here that the galaxy has never contacted, humanity should be the first to meet them. Back on Earth, children attended schools where they learned about technologies that would have seemed like magic to the aliens who had once ruled the galaxy. What had been humanity's greatest secrets were now taught in basic science classes. Remember, a teacher told her students, the galaxy thought humans were primitive because we appeared to use simple tools. But the greatest strength is often hidden until it is needed most. The final proof of humanity's new position came when the Galactic Council formally requested Earth's membership as a senior partner rather than a junior member. The species that had once mocked human weakness now sought human protection. The proposal grants Earth authority over all exploration missions beyond the galactic rim. Admiral Clark explained to President Carter, they want us to be responsible for contact with any new civilizations that might exist in deep space. Carter smiled as she read the formal documents. They are asking us to be the galaxy's protectors because they know they cannot handle what might be out there. What will you tell them? That humanity accepts the responsibility, but on our terms. The galaxy will learn to treat all species with respect, not just the powerful ones. As night fell over Nexus Prime, the lights of human ships created new constellations in the darkness. The beings who had once dismissed Earth as insignificant now looked up at those lights with wonder and fear. They had mocked humanity's weakness and awakened a strength that surpassed their understanding. Now they watched as humans explored mysteries beyond their imagination, knowing that their time as the galaxy's dominant powers had ended. The sleeping giant had not only awakened, it had grown beyond the dreams of those who had disturbed its rest, and it showed no signs of stopping its expansion into the infinite unknown. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within hours of the Vex fleet's destruction, every major world had received reports about the impossible human victory. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session as panicked messages flooded their communication systems. Ambassador Kethvar stood before the same holographic displays where he had mocked humanity just months before. But now his crystalline form shook with fear instead of arrogance. The data his sensors had recorded made no sense according to everything the galaxy knew about physics. The energy readings are impossible, he reported to the stunned council members. Human weapons are operating at 400% efficiency compared to our most advanced technology. Their ships demonstrate power outputs that exceed our theoretical maximums by factors we cannot even calculate. The insectoid Vex representative, Hive Queen Nethka, clicked her mandibles nervously. Her species had just lost their most powerful fleet to beings they had considered barely worth noticing. How long have the humans possessed such capabilities? That is what terrifies me, Kethvar replied. We have no idea. At that moment, the Council's sensors detected incoming ships. The massive display screens showed a formation of human vessels approaching Nexus Prime, but these were not the primitive craft that had visited before. These ships were giants that dwarfed even the space station itself. Colonel Ryan Foster stood on the bridge of the USS Nemesis as it led the human diplomatic fleet toward the council chambers. Foster was a career military officer who had spent years pretending to be impressed by alien technology. Now he could finally drop that act. "Sir, the station is hailing us," his communications officer reported. "Put them through," Foster replied calmly. The voice of the Prime Arbiter filled the bridge, but it no longer carried the authority it once had. "Human vessels, please state your intentions. The Council is prepared to meet with your representatives." Foster smiled coldly. "Prime Arbiter, Earth thanks you for agreeing to see us. We have much to discuss." As the human fleet settled into formation around Nexus Prime, beings throughout the station pressed against windows to stare at the impossible ships. Each vessel seemed to bend light around itself, making them hard to look at directly. Their hulls showed no visible weapons, but everyone could feel the power contained within Dot in the council chambers. Foster walked to the center of the room, where human delegates had once sat in the smallest, least important section. Now aliens from across the galaxy waited to hear what he had to say. "Counselors," Foster began, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the vast hall. "Earth appreciates your previous assessment of our military capabilities. Your mockery served an important purpose. It convinced the galaxy to ignore our true development while we perfected technologies that surpass your understanding." The ethereal representative pulsed with colors that showed confusion and fear. "How is this possible? Our science shows that such advancement should take thousands of years." Dr. Julie Adams stepped forward from the human delegation. She was Earth's chief scientist for alien relations, but more importantly, she was one of the people who had discovered humanity's greatest secret. "That brings us to the real revelation," Adams announced. "We have learned why your species stopped advancing while humanity continued to grow stronger." She activated a holographic display that showed brain scans from different alien species compared to human brains. The differences were shocking and clear. "Your species reached evolutionary peaks thousands of years ago," Adams explained. "Your brains developed to their maximum capacity and then stopped changing. You became comfortable with what you had accomplished and stopped trying to improve." The council members looked at the brain scans with growing horror as Adams continued. "Humans, however, are still evolving. Our brains continue developing new neural pathways that allow us to think in ways your species cannot. While you were content with your achievements, we were still learning, still growing, still becoming more than we were." Cathvar's crystalline form flickered with distress. "You are saying we are mentally inferior?" "Not inferior," Adams replied gently. "Simply finished. Your evolution is complete. Ours is not." Foster stepped forward again. "For 60 years, while you debated whether we deserved a place in your council, human scientists discovered how to fold dimensions. 30 years later, we learned to manipulate quantum energy fields. 20 years ago, we built our first ships that exist partially outside normal spacetime. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Not only were humans more advanced than anyone had realized, but they were still advancing while the great galactic civilizations had been standing still for centuries. The Vex learned this lesson the hard way," Foster continued. "Their entire invasion fleet was destroyed by ships they never saw coming. We gave them multiple chances to retreat. They chose to ignore our warnings." Hive Queen Nefka spoke in a voice that barely contained her terror. "What do you want from us?" Foster looked around the chamber at faces that showed fear, confusion, and dawning understanding. These beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, but their time as the dominant powers was ending. "We want what we have always wanted," he replied, "to be treated with respect, to be given our fair place among the stars, to be recognized as equals." "But you are not our equals," whispered the Prime Arbiter. "You are our superiors." The silence that followed those words was absolute. Every being in the chamber understood that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The species they had mocked and dismissed had quietly become something beyond their comprehension. "We do not seek to rule," Foster assured them. "We seek to explore, to learn, to continue growing. But we will no longer tolerate being treated as primitive curiosities." As the human delegation prepared to leave, Foster turned back to address the council one final time. "The galaxy spent so long deciding whether humans deserved respect that you never noticed. We had evolved beyond needing your approval. Consider that carefully as you plan for the future." The human ships departed Nexus Prime as quietly as they had arrived, leaving behind a council chamber full of beings who finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. They had mocked Earth's weakness and awakened humanity's strength. Now they would live with the consequences of that choice for the rest of their existence. Commander Zektar felt good about his mission as he led the Vex advance fleet toward the human colonies. His ship, the Death's Hunger, was one of the most powerful vessels in the Vex Navy. Behind him followed 20 other warships, more than enough to handle whatever pathetic defense the humans might try. "Commander, we are detecting 3 human cargo ships fleeing the system," reported his sensor officer. "They appear to be carrying colonists trying to escape." Zektar clicked his mandibles with amusement. The insect-like alien had fought many battles, but none had been this easy. "Disable their engines, but do not destroy them. We need those humans alive for the mining operations." The Vex ships moved to surround what looked like simple cargo vessels. Each human ship was about the size of a Vex shuttle, with basic metal, AULLs, and simple engine designs. They looked exactly like the primitive technology the Galactic Council had mocked months earlier. "Human vessels, shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded," Zektar broadcast on all frequencies. "Resist, and you will be destroyed." Captain Sam Brooks sat on the bridge of the cargo ship USS Liberty, watching the Vex ships move closer. He was a quiet man with gray hair who had been flying cargo runs for 15 years. At least, that was what everyone thought he did. "Captain, they are charging their weapons," his tactical officer reported. Brooks nodded calmly. "Send the signal to the other ships. It is time to drop the act." "Signal sent, sir. All ships report ready." Brooks pressed a button on his command chair. "Computer, end stealth protocol. Show them who we really are." The USS Liberty began to change. Hull plates slid away to reveal weapon systems that had been hidden for decades. What had looked like simple cargo bays opened to show energy cannons that glowed with blue fire. The ship's true size became clear as sections that had been folded. In space expanded to their full dimensions. Commander Zektar watched in horror as the small cargo ship suddenly became larger than his flagship. Sensors that had shown primitive human technology now screamed warnings about energy levels that should not be possible. "What is happening?" he demanded from his crew. "How can they hide such power?" Before anyone could answer, the USS Liberty fired. The energy beam that struck Death's Hunger was unlike anything the Vex had ever seen. It did not just damage the ship's armor or destroy its weapons. It unmade the very atoms that formed the hull, turning solid matter into empty space. Vex cruisers simply stopped existing. "All ships, attack the humans!" Zektar screamed, but his remaining vessels were already under fire from the other 2 cargo ships, which had also revealed their true nature. Captain Brooks watched the battle with calm eyes. "Target their command ship next. Let us show them what happens when you threaten human civilians." Light years away, Admiral Clark stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, humanity's first true dreadnought. The massive ship had been waiting in the shadow of an asteroid, invisible to all sensors. Around it, dozens of other vessels began to appear as their stealth systems shut down. The Valiant was over 2 kilometers, long and bristled with weapons that bent space and time. Its hull was made from materials that existed in multiple dimensions. At once, when it moved, reality itself seemed to ripple around it. All stations, this is Admiral Clark. She broadcast on frequencies that reached across the galaxy. The human fleet is fully operational. Vex forces, you have 30 seconds to leave human space, or we will show you why Earth has stayed hidden for so long. Commander Pete Harris led a squadron of Raptor-class fighters from the Valiant's launch bays. The small ships looked nothing like the primitive craft the galaxy expected from humans. They moved through space like living things, their hulls shifting color to match their surroundings. "Gold Squadron, this is Gold Leader," Harris said to his pilots. "Remember, we are not just fighting for the colonies. We are showing the galaxy that humanity will never be weak prey again." The main Vex fleet arrived to find their advanced ships already destroyed. Fleet Admiral Yekskov, the supreme commander of the invasion force, stared at his sensors in disbelief. Where he had expected to find fleeing human cargo ships, he now saw warships that made his fleet look like toys. "Impossible," he hissed. "Human technology cannot produce such vessels." Our intelligence was complete. His aide, a younger Vex warrior, pointed at the energy readings on their screens. "Admiral, those ships are operating at power levels 400% above our best estimates. Their weapons are manipulating matter at the quantum level." Admiral Clark's voice reached every ship in the Vex fleet. "You came here believing humans were weak and helpless. You thought our colonies would be easy victims. You were wrong." The USS Valiant moved forward, its massive bulk casting shadows over the Vex formation. Other human ships appeared around it, surrounding the alien fleet completely. Ships that had been invisible moments before now filled space with their presence. "This is your final warning," Clark continued. "Leave now, or discover what human strength really means." Fleet Admiral Yekskov had commanded Vex forces for 50 years. He had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed countless enemies. But looking at the human fleet arrayed before him, he felt something he had never experienced. "Before fear. All ships," he ordered, his voice shaking. "Begin retreat. Maximum speed." But Captain Harris and his fighters were already moving. "Gold Squadron, light them up. Show them that running will not save them." The Raptor fighters struck like bolts of lightning. Their weapons tore through Vex armor as if it were paper. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before exploded in brilliant flashes of light in minutes. The largest invasion fleet in Vex history was either destroyed or fleeing in panic. The few ships that escaped carried news that would shake the galaxy to its core. Humanity was not the weak, primitive species everyone thought they knew. Humanity had been hiding, waiting, and building something that surpassed the understanding of every alien civilization. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the terrible meeting at Nexus Prime. Captain Ben Parker sat in his command chair aboard the USS Explorer, watching his screens with growing worry. The small reconnaissance ship was hidden behind an asteroid in the Alliage Kepler system, far from Earth, but close enough to see trouble coming. "Captain, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Tom Kelly from the sensor station. His voice was tight with fear. Parker moved to look over Kelly's shoulder at the display. What he saw made his stomach drop. Hundreds of red dots filled the screen, each one representing a Vex warship moving toward human space. The insect-like aliens had brought enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. "How many ships are we looking at?" Parker asked. "Over 200 capital ships, sir, plus at least 500 smaller vessels. It's the largest Vex battle fleet anyone has ever seen." Parker stared at the massive formation. The Vex ships looked like giant metal beetles, their dark hulls covered in weapon ports. Each one was 10 times bigger than his little explorer. If they reached the human mining colonies in this system, it would be a massacre. "Send an emergency message to Earth Command," Parker ordered. "Tell them the Vex are coming in force." Back on Earth, Admiral Helen Clark received the message in her underground command center deep beneath the Pentagon. The older woman had gray hair and tired eyes, but her mind was still sharp after 30 years of military service. She read Parker's report twice before calling her staff together. "The Vex have decided to take our outer colonies," she announced, "to the room full of officers. They are not trying to hide their approach. Intelligence says they plan to use our people as slaves in their mining operations." General Roy Mitchell, a big man with scarred hands, studied the tactical displays on the wall. "They brought enough ships to flatten anything we could send against them, at least anything they think we have." Clark nodded slowly. "The Galactic Council has already said this is an internal territorial dispute. They will not help us. We are on our own." Across Earth, emergency broadcasts began. President Linda Carter sat at her desk in the Oval Office, looking directly into the cameras as she prepared to address not just America, but the entire world. "My fellow citizens of Earth," she began, her voice steady and strong, "we face a threat, unlike anything in human history. The Vex Empire has sent a massive fleet to claim our colonies by force. The Galactic Council, which has always looked down on our species, has chosen to do nothing." As the president spoke, something amazing began to happen. Military bases around the world started to change. Underground doors opened that most people had never seen before. Hangars that everyone thought held normal aircraft revealed their true contents. Sleek ships with smooth curves and strange blue lights emerged from hidden spaces in Nevada. Dr. Alan Cooper stood in a facility that did not exist on any public map. The Aurora Project had been his life's work for 20 years, and now it was finally time to reveal what they had accomplished. Banks of computers hummed around him as his team prepared for the most important moment in human history. "Sir, we have the order," his assistant said, handing him a sealed communication from the highest levels of government. "Operation Sleeper. Protocol is now active. Begin awakening procedures immediately." Cooper took a deep breath and entered his authorization code into the main computer. Across the world, systems that had waited in darkness for decades began to come online. Hidden shipyards in asteroid belts received the signal. Secret research stations scattered throughout the solar system started their engines. Carefully disguised manufacturing facilities began producing equipment that would change everything in the Kepler system. Captain Parker watched the Vex fleet continue its approach toward the human colonies. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, confident that nothing could stop them. They had not even bothered to send scouts ahead. "Captain, I am picking up transmissions from the colony," Kelly reported. "They are preparing to evacuate, but there is not enough time. The Vex will arrive in 6 hours." Parker felt helpless. His little ship could do nothing against such a massive force. The Explorer was built for watching, not fighting. All he could do was record what happened and hope someone would survive to learn from it. Then his communication system crackled to life. "USS Explorer, this is Earth Command. You are ordered to maintain position and observe. Do not engage the enemy under any circumstances." "Sir," Parker replied, "there are 50,000 civilians on those colonies. If we do not help them, they will all die or become slaves." "Captain Parker," came a new voice that he recognized as Admiral Clark herself. "Trust us. Help is coming." Parker wondered what kind of help Earth could possibly send. Even if every ship in the human fleet left immediately, they would arrive too late. The Vex would have finished their work and moved on Dot as if reading his thoughts. Admiral Clark continued. Ben, I know this is hard to understand, but Earth has capabilities the galaxy does not know about. Your job is to watch and record what happens next. History is about to change. Parker sat back in his chair, still confused but willing to trust his superiors. Around him, his crew prepared their sensors to capture whatever was about to happen. In the Oval Office, President Carter finished her address to the world. The aliens who mocked our weakness are about to learn why humanity has survived every challenge in our history. We do not break. We do not surrender. And we never forget those who threaten our people. As her words reached every corner of Earth, the planet's true children began to stir. Ships that had never been seen by alien eyes powered up their engines. Weapons that bent the laws of physics charged their exotic matter cores. Technologies that made the galaxy's greatest achievements look like stone tools prepared for their first test. The Vex fleet continued toward the human colonies, unaware that their approach had awakened something that had been sleeping for 50 years. Something that would soon remind the galaxy why humans had earned their place among the stars, not through the kindness of others, but through their own strength and determination. The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with alien voices as representatives from 12 different worlds gathered for their yearly meeting. The massive chamber stretched so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Crystal pillars held up the roof, each one glowing with soft blue light that made everything look like it was underwater. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the small human section, feeling very out of place. His simple gray uniform looked plain next to the fancy robes and shining armor worn by the other delegates. Next to him, Captain Lisa Hayes checked her notes one more time. Both humans knew this meeting would not go well for Earth. At the front of the hall, Ambassador Kethvar rose from his seat. The Zephyrian was tall and made of living crystal that caught the light as he moved. His people thought they were the smartest beings in the galaxy, and Kethvar never let anyone forget it. When he spoke, his voice rang like glass bells. "Fellow council members," Kethvar said, his words carrying across the silent hall. "Today we discuss the primitive species known as humans. I have prepared a full report on their laughable military strength." A huge screen appeared in the air above the delegates. It showed pictures of Earth's newest warship, the USS Phoenix. The ship looked proud and strong in the images, but when Kethvar put it next to a Zephyrian cruiser, it looked like a toy. "Look at this pathetic vessel," Kethvar continued. "Their largest ship is only 200 meters long. Our smallest patrol boat is bigger than their greatest warship." Laughter filled the hall. The Vex delegates, who looked like giant insects, made clicking sounds with their mouths. The ethereals, who were made of glowing gas, pulsed with colors. That Morrison knew meant amusement in their language. Morrison felt his face grow hot with anger, but he kept quiet. Hayes put a hand on his arm to keep him calm. They both knew getting upset would only make things worse. "Their weapons are even more amusing," Kethvar went on. He showed images of human laser cannons and missile systems. They still use simple energy beams and metal projectiles. They have no shields, no space-bending weapons, nothing that could threaten even our oldest ships. A delegate from the Corvan Empire, a race of blue-skinned humanoids, raised his hand. "How many ships do they have total?" "Fewer than 3,000 in their entire fleet," Kethvar replied. "We could destroy them all with a single battle group, and still have ships left over for lunch." More laughter echoed through the hall. Morrison watched as the other delegates whispered to each other, probably making jokes about humans. He had heard it all before, during his 3 years as Earth's representative. "Their technology is so backward," another Zephyrian officer added, "that they still burn chemicals to move between planets." My child's science project has better engines than their space program. The insult hit Morrison hard. He knew human technology looked simple compared to alien ships that could fold space and travel faster than light. But he also knew things these aliens did not, things that Earth had kept secret for decades. They are barely worth watching, Kethvar concluded. Our experts believe humans will need at least 500 years to become any kind of threat. Even then, they would only be dangerous to the smallest colony worlds. Morrison raised his hand, asking for permission to speak. The council leader, an ancient being called the Prime Arbiter, looked annoyed but nodded. Earth thanks the council for their careful study of our capabilities, Morrison said, standing up slowly. His voice stayed calm, even though his heart was pounding. We will think about your observations and learn from them. That was all he said. Morrison sat back down while the aliens looked at each other in surprise. They had expected him to get angry or make excuses. Instead, he had thanked them for insulting his people. The meeting continued with other business. The council voted to take away some of Earth's territory in the outer systems. They also decided that humans would have to pay higher taxes to the Galactic Alliance. Every decision made Earth seem weaker and less important. As the delegates started to leave, Morrison heard bits of their conversations. The Vex talked about humans like they were pets that might be useful for simple labor. The Ethereals wondered if Earth was worth the energy it took to monitor the planet. Such a shame, one Corvan delegate said to another. They seem nice enough, but they will never amount to anything important. Hayes walked beside Morrison as they left the Great Hall. Neither human spoke until they reached their small ship in the docking bay. The vessel looked tiny next to the alien craft around it, but Morrison climbed aboard with a small smile on his face. That went exactly as expected, he said once they were alone. Hayes looked confused. Jake, they just humiliated us in front of the entire galaxy. How is that what we expected? Morrison sat in the pilot's seat and started the engines. As their ship pulled away from Nexus Prime, he looked back at the massive station where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made their plans. Because Lisa, they still think they know what humans are capable of. As long as they keep believing we are weak and stupid, they will never see what's really coming. Hayes studied her commander's face. She had worked with Morrison for years, but had never seen this expression before. It was not anger or sadness. It was something that made her feel both excited and frightened. What do you mean? She asked. Morrison entered the coordinates for Earth and engaged the faster-than-light drive. The stars outside turned into streaks of light as they headed home. I mean that Earth has been very busy while the galaxy laughed at us. Admiral Clark will want a full report on this meeting. The Council just gave us exactly what we needed, which is proof that they still have no idea who they are dealing with.